Welcome to All Things Financial with Jack Driscoll. Each week, Jack takes on all things you thought were hard to understand about your finances and makes it fun, easy, but most of all interesting. From insurance to the best way to save your money and squeeze the most out of the dollars you put aside for your rainy day. And now, you have a friend in the money business. Here's your host, Jack Driscoll.
Happy New Year, everyone. I appreciate your tuning in to another edition of All Things Financial. It's a new year. What we typically like to do in the financial planning world in a new year is take a little breather. The year-end stress and all the strategies we tried to apply at the end of the year to maximize your finances is behind us. So what we have taking into a new year is an opportunity to step back, maybe relook at all the areas in our financial lives with the disappointment of why we're not as far ahead as we thought we would be, and the hope and optimism on how we can get to where we want to arrive with our goals and what changes we can make to get from here to there. In a nutshell, that's probably what brings us on the process of financial planning, because financial planning is really trying to get something to happen that won't happen on its own. And usually, for a lot of families and business owners, that's accomplishing goals and avoiding risks, or at least managing risks, that otherwise, if left unattended or unaddressed or identified, might ruin the otherwise best laid plans. So we might have perfect plans in our retirement programs and our company health insurance, all the areas of our lives, and then we have a car insurance claim because we caused a car accident, or our children did, and there's a lawsuit now by someone who was paralyzed or injured as a result of that blink of an eye instance. And here, because we have an Achilles heel in our financial plan, being inadequate protection against a lawsuit due to that auto accident, we could lose all of the other assets we were working so hard to manage and protect and grow. So, it's almost like I heard a story just this week on when you look at a financial situation of any family or business in total, the whole package has a number of components, and you really don't see the whole picture unless the whole package is looked at and each of its components. So when I go out to buy a car, I know the engine. We talk about how's the engine, and we say, well, the engine's rated this or it's rated that. But don't forget, the engine is made up of a number of components. And if any one of the components fails, in some cases, the whole engine can fail. In other cases, the whole engine won't fail. So financial programs in our financial lives are very much similar in business and in our personal lives. So I heard this story which kind of sums it up, and it says, hey kids, around Christmas time, do you like chocolate chip cookies? And they say yes, and they say, okay, fine. I don't have time to put the whole mix together, but here are some morsels. Here's some chocolate chips, go ahead and eat them. And then they say, well, here's some flour, go ahead and eat that. And here's a stick of butter, go ahead and eat that. And you get through the whole process of all the separate ingredients, and you tell them, okay, jump up and down. What you really have inside you is the whole combination of chocolate chip cookies. Well, folks, that's how I look at financial planning. And I say, without the whole plan being mixed together properly with a skilled cook or chef to know what ingredients go in together, it doesn't make any difference if I just have all these separate ingredients, such as my auto insurance over here, my life insurance over there, my retirement plans in my 401k, my disability insurance or my health, and no one's there to help coordinate it all together in one mix to make sure everything's properly balanced. Not too much in any one area, not too little in another area, and I didn't miss any ingredients in the final area. If it's all mixed together properly, we have balance. So that's what I wanted to take New Year's weekend for and help share with all of you. Now might be a good time to step back and just look at your lives. I talk to business owners this way. Why are you working? Why are you working so hard? What are you working for? And isn't it really, like I mentioned on a couple shows ago, not what you make, but what you keep, what you have after it's all over? That's really very much, maybe even most important. And I say the same to the families that I deal with. Maybe isn't it most important that after it's all said and done, and after all your working years, and you've accumulated your assets, whatever they are or they aren't, and you've struggled through all the difficulties, whatever you have and you have not, it's really all you're left with that seems to then matter in the end. So if you step back now, it's New Year's weekend, and relook at your situation if you're not happy where you are, and relook at your situation if you are happy where you are, and then we go forward, and we do some retirement planning, and we do some asset protection planning, and we do some income tax planning, and we do some, let's say, health planning, and we go through all these ingredients and help make sure you're on track to where you're going. Well, that brings the question, do you know where you're going? Like the story in Alice in Wonderland, where if you don't know where you're going, it really doesn't matter which direction you go, because you can't measure whether you're on track or you're not. So many of you listening and watching might be under a false sense of security that you're well on track, things seem to be going just fine, and therefore you're probably okay and don't need any real attention. And I, as a financial professional, would tend to agree with that if we meet all together, we review your whole situation, we, number one, establish where are you trying to go, what are you trying to have, what are you trying to accomplish, and by when are you hoping to have it accomplished. Once we get that down, and we enumerate that, we say, okay, here's the lifestyle we're dreaming of, here are the risks we're trying to avoid, and then we say, by so-and-so date, I'd like to be here, I'd like to have this, this is what I'd like my life to be. Now we as a financial professional roll up our sleeves and get to work and say, doing what you're doing right now, if you continue doing along the same course, and I project that course between now and when your target date is, will you be and have what you need to have accomplished all the goals you've set, or should changes be made, and if so, what changes should be made? That's New Year's, folks. This is the time for that type of planning. It's big picture planning. It's a relook at every year, and in fact, sometimes a relook at your whole life in alignment with your financial goals. So sometimes we'll look at a situation and say, let's break this down to the ingredients, and that's what I'd like to do now. So just as when we're building a house, we start with the structure of the foundation, which supports the whole plan of the house, I'd like to start with that in financial planning. And that typically revolves around basic spending habits and basic goals. So before we can even build a house, the first thing we need are blueprints. And before we can have blueprints, the first thing we need is a layout of an idea. So what I ask you to do on this New Year's weekend is sit back, and get a layout of an idea of what you'd like your life to look like now and in the future. Put a date on that in the future. You could do retirement date. You could do at age 80, 70, 60, 50, 40. Every 10 years I'd like to be here. You could do, here's what I'd like it to look like by the end of 2015 in 1 year. And then in 5 years and 10, you could stage these dates out so that we could have interim goals and interim plans and then interim milestone steps that we can measure our progress. So I want you to take this weekend, and maybe even further, of course, and kind of lay out the generalities of what you want this house of yours, which is your life, to look like. And then you get it to a professional, which is the architect and the engineers, and they actually design a blueprint which translates your dreams. You're the housewife and the husband, and you sit and you say, I'd like a kitchen that has this and has that, and I'd like the garage to be here, and I'd like the big yard, and I'd like... You lay all this out, but they're all still dreams. So what we want to do is try to get them down and on paper, so to speak, so that we could begin using them as a building block. The first building block is actually the blueprint and the engineered drawings. So we do the same in financial planning. You bring your goals and you bring your fears to the financial planner and say, here's what we want. Here's what we hope to have. Here's what we thought we'd have by now and don't have maybe. Or whatever your goals and whatever your risks are, boy, we're really afraid if we're already in retirement, if we went into a nursing home, it would wipe us out. Is there anything we could do? Bring all of those to the financial planner. But only you can create your goals and dreams. Only a properly trained financial planner can take those dreams and begin to sort and organize them into their different categories and components and put them together like that cake mix and cookie mix we talked about. So it's teamwork. So what we do is that we then start with a structure. After we have the blueprint laid out, we say, okay, we need to start with a foundation. What is the foundation? It's the core elements of a properly constructed financial plan. Those core elements typically revolve around budget. We're financially strong and sound. That basically means no matter how little you make or how much you make, you're spending less than you make. So the first process is evaluating your current situation. What are you making now? What are you spending now? What do you have left over, if any? What changes can be made with that to balance and solidify the current living situation with the income that you now have and the expenses that you now have? So that's the start. Then we get into, all right, if things are on course somewhat right now, before we go making changes for the future, we look and see, do we need to protect the present? In other words, do we need to protect that what is happening now can continue if anything goes wrong? So what I want you to think about this weekend also is what do you mean? What can go wrong? What types of things that if they went wrong could wipe out your plan? Now here's a critical component to financial planning. A lot of things can go wrong, but they all don't necessarily wipe you out. So you could be in a car accident and it's a fender bender. Well, that could go wrong, but it might cost you an amount of money that might only set you back a month or 2 or 3. You could also be in a car accident that could be an enormous lawsuit, like I've talked about in prior shows, that would scare you to the risk of maybe losing everything that you've ever had, and maybe even everything you ever will have if they garnish wages, put liens on homes, things like that. I'm not an attorney. I could just tell you there are very big fears. So there are catastrophic risks, and then there are inconvenience risks. So I want you to list, here are all the things that scare us that might knock us off course or destroy us entirely. So you write those risks down. What if a flood happened? What if we died prematurely? What if we became disabled and lost our job? What if our job terminated our employment? What if this? What if that? And you go through the whole scenario. What if our parents got sick and went into a nursing home? Who's going to take care of them? Would I have to quit my job to take care of them, so therefore I would lose income? You have to deal with all of these issues, and you just write them down on paper. These are all our fears. And then after they're listed, you write down and enumerate those. These are the most critical, catastrophic risks to the least critical, just minor inconveniences risk. And they might be, someone hacked my credit card, but it was only a $500 amount and they made good on the credit card, versus someone hacked my identity and they've messed you up for 4 or 5 years, So you list all those, and that's your risk or protection side that you want to try to make sure as you're building this foundation to a financial plan that you're building it on a solid foundation so that you're always going forward and never going backward. If any of those bad things happen to you, you've prepared in advance for those and decided which one of those risks you feel you can manage if they happen to you, versus which one of those risks you feel you need to transfer the risk to an insurance company or someone else to handle for you, because it would be too burdensome or cumbersome or expensive for you to try to handle that on your own, versus the worst of all risks, the ones that could be catastrophic, as remote as they are that they could happen. They do happen to some people, and if they happen to you, they would totally wipe you out. So there are different categories of risks. We want to identify those in advance. We want to prepare for them in advance, and we want to protect against them in advance. Now, after we get done with that and building our stable foundation, we are looking at budgeting, we are looking at living within your means, we are looking at protecting against things that can go wrong. And in your foundation of financial planning, we are also now looking at your goals and saying, what if we did no changes, would our life look like in 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years from now? And the financial planners can help with that. And we can help with that. There are not a lot of financial planners that are certified financial planners involving themselves in these processes, unless you pick up the phone and interview a number of them. Find one. You can give us a call if you'd like. We can introduce you to the process of financial planning and help you evaluate different financial planners and figures who's best for you to work with. Any one of you who are already clients of ours, who are listening or watching the show, who want to expose other friends and family of yours to these types of processes that they're not having, what a great gift to give them. The gift of introduction to someone who can help them like we've helped so many of you. So think about that for their sake. And then when we build this foundation, when we look at building this foundation at New Year's weekend, I want you to think of your goals. And then what we do in the foundation side, block by block, we try to put together the components, the financial tools and the financial resources and the financial instruments that you should begin employing in your own lives, putting together to build your own financial foundation of tools to help you get to where you're going. Every one of you watching and listening are different, so we use different tools for every single plan. Just like all of your homes are different and all of your businesses are different, so should all of your financial plans be different. But it starts with that stable foundation, and every foundation begins first with your goals, your dreams, your thoughts, and your fears. And then you get to the competent professionals to really help you build that model if it's a car, build that engine if it's a car, build the cookies if it's a cook or a chef, the cake, whatever it is. It starts with the components, and then we assemble it all into the complete package. It's not really a complete and well-balanced package unless all of the different components are properly identified, properly constructed. And that can't be done if you don't first sit on a weekend like this weekend, relook at your whole life, realize, hey, I'm not getting where I hoped we would be and where I want to get to, and I think it's about time we might need some help. And then feel free to give us a call, and we can help guide you through the steps. We'd be happy to do that. Again, Happy New Year. Let's look forward to a brighter and more prosperous future year in 2015 with the help of a professional might be the missing ingredient for you up to now. And that's easily solved. All right, folks, I appreciate you tuning in to All Things Financial. We'll be back again next week.
You've been listening to All Things Financial with your friend with the answers to all financial matters, Jack Driscoll of Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services. Securities and investment advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer and registered investment advisor and member FINRA and SIPC. Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services is not affiliated with SagePoint Financial, Inc. or registered as a broker, dealer, or investment advisor. You can reach Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services Incorporated at 412-833-1500, and they are located at 2738 South Park Road, Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, 15102.